We're approaching the full moon. I have so enjoyed linking up with the moon cycle more and being aware of where I am in that, looking up at the sky and seeing that, having Moonual rituals. If you haven't followed the Moonual yet, I really recommend you do. Hi, Stephen. We're going to go over the full moon. It's coming up, and I want to know what this means for us. So Sarah Armour is this wonderful astrologer and comedian, and she is a friend of mine, and she has the most fantastic ways of describing these moments. So let me just pin a comment. What is this upcoming full moon about? Okay, I'm very sandy right now. I just came off the beach and it was really nice. I toured this swim club called the Dolphin Club that has you swim out in the bay, and I don't think I'm going to join it, but I might try cold water swimming and see if I get into it and then go about it from there. And I did also notice that some movie theaters in San Francisco are open, so I might go do that later on. And I am sort of like dating this new person a little bit. So we went to the beach together and we might do a movie. And yeah, other than that, dark night of the soul, no big deal. Just many weeks of real darkness. So I am hoping to be sort of an access point for some of you guys if you have questions, because I do think when we enter like dark night of the soul moment in our own lives, we have access to some truths. So I think I'll do this week a sort of ask me anything moment. So let's bring on Sarah and talk about this full moon. You guys are doing too. I want to hear. So just put in the comments if you have strong feelings or things going up in your life. Hello, beautiful.
Oh, hello. Can you see me? Is it connecting? For some reason, my internet's like so slow today.
There you are.
Have I arrived?
Hi,
okay,
sweetie.
Good. Okay, so Marguerite, I'm very pleased to hear that you are going through a dark night of the soul, because that really is apropos for this moment.
I'm taking out my pen and my notebook.
Oh my God, great. Yeah, I'm trying to find sort of romantic, because okay, so what is this moon all about? So everything you said.
I have an early opening question though. Is the full moon tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
So tomorrow it is exact around it's like 2:50. That's because makeup smeared all over my face. It's like 2:50 p.m. EST. So 3 hour. What is it? 11, 12, 1 to 2. So yes, 11:50 Pacific time. There will be a full moon exact, and then we'll have a moonual starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, I guess 2 p.m. Eastern there. So definitely join us tomorrow. Marguerite's going to do, she's going to read an excerpt from something and do a journal exercise. And I already know it's perfect. And what you said as an intro is so perfect. So what is a full moon, right? A full moon is when we are seeing the opposition energy play out between the sun and what we can see and all of the planets and energies that are in relationship to that sun, versus the moon and what it's illuminating sort of for the inner experience that we're having. So through the course of the moon cycle, so over 28 days, you have a new moon where the moon is like hidden. And then for like 2 weeks, we're doing our work, the moon's moving around the zodiac, and we may not be totally, it's like we've set new intentions on the new moon, and then we start to move forward, and we may kind of like bury, or we're focused on the solar energy, but then that full moon energy hits where the moon is at the brightest it gets, exactly opposite the sun. And that is a time every month where whatever you've been burying or whatever this new intention cycle brought up for you gets illuminated, and the outer is as powerful as the inner. And so we're kind of looking at, okay, so the solar energy is here in my chart, and this is how I'm really feeling about it, or this is what we need to look at based on what is being uncovered in the darkness from this opposition energy, this light, right? So we're talking about Aries and Libra. So the sun is in Aries versus the moon in Libra. So even off the bat, without knowing any details, it's all about relationship, right? Aries is I am, it's the self. Libra, opposite that, is relationships and partnerships and how we mingle with other, right? But this is not just any regular full moon. We have Venus the planet of romance and love and the divine goddess, at exactly 8 degrees with the sun. So the sun is at 8 degrees, the moon is at 8 degrees. But then we also have Venus, the goddess, at 8 degrees Aries, with Chiron, the ancient wound, at 8 degrees Aries. So we have Venus, the wound, and the sun all illuminating the same sort of outer experience, opposing the moon in Libra, showing us, okay, how do you, number one, really feel about the relationships that you're in? How do you feel about the relationships that are coming versus relationships that are going? But more than anything, I think we're going to be really triggered because Chiron is that wound. So whereas Chiron can be, and it always leads to healing, it always leads to the next thing, but you do have to feel the pain in order to make that Chiron really work. So I think what we're really experiencing this full moon is like, it's almost like old relationship wounds or old relationship excitements, relationship patterns are going to be showing. So even for you, okay, so you've been going through this releasing of one relationship, entering this new relationship, you know, and so as you're entering this new relationship, I would ask yourself, you know, when have I felt this way before? Like whatever fears you have coming up about it, or whatever excitement you have or fantasies you have. Maybe you're noticing that every time you start dating someone right away, you're like, oh my God, is this my husband? Right? Or maybe you notice that every time you start to date someone that you start to pick apart their Instagram family life or it's like, it's not necessarily that we're going to be wounding each other during this lunation, but we're going to see our past wounds in relationships show up. And really, it's not even about, there's so much projection going on. We have Mercury, the sign of, or the planet that represents like our thoughts and our communication still in Pisces. So even though it's not a Mercury retrograde, it sort of feels like a Mercury retrograde. Like like Venus is underwater, but it is in that like heart space, that like higher dimensional space. But still, like, there's a lot of projecting going on. There's a lot of things that are maybe like fuzzy or unclear, and it's not for no reason. It's so that before we really start to like put our foot, like pedal to the metal and have it really be go time, because Mars is finally moving past the North Node. So there's going to be this like starting today really, but after this full moon, there's going to be a way faster activation of like you're going to see after this full moon a lot of stuff that you've been like calling to you and like praying for and percolating on, or manifesting, but you haven't seen it yet. There's going to be like fast action that happens right after this full moon. But it's kind of good because before that, you know, tonight, tomorrow, the next few days, we're going to be feeling this energy of like, before we know that there's going to be more action, before we know we're going to get our wishes granted and we're going to have all the things that we want, what fears in us, what wounds in us, what triggers in us, what parts of ourselves, Chiron, Aries, Venus, like what about our own divine goddess? What about our own I am energy? Are we still either defaulting to relationship about not being fully ourselves? Where are we wounded within? You know, how can we recognize that before we take it out on someone else, or like get out or in of a relationship too fast or start a fight or whatever? We want to know that everything you're thinking and feeling is meant to be brought up to the surface for you to actually take a look at. If you want a really good exercise you can do tonight, think about everything that's going on in your life and ask yourself, when was the last time I felt this way? Journal on it. And then keep going back. And when was the time I felt this way before that? And when was the time I felt this way before that? And when was the time I felt this way before that? Whatever relationship issues are coming up for you right now are not new. Not new at all. This is like, we're kind of peering in. It's like when you're like looking outside like a house, like a family on Christmas, and you're like, that must be what it's like. I'm Jewish, so that's just for me. Maybe I'm just creeping outside of Christmas windows. But there is this sort of energy of like, we're looking into the window of our own relationships and our own, yeah, exactly, pattern finding and pattern recognizing, because it's not necessarily that you know what's going on inside that living room, but you have to be aware that you're creeping outside the window, not only feeling your own black, I don't celebrate Christmas, poor me, I'm a Jew, there's Hanukkah's such a fucking bore or whatever, but also that whatever we look inside, if we look in the house and we see this loving family, on the one hand, that's a good thing because we can imagine that we can recognize that we want that. On the other hand, we really don't know what's going on behind the veneer of whatever they can see, from the street. And, there might be, instead of it going, oh, I'm Scrooge and I'm just out here as the fucking Jewish businessman with no hope for having Christmas morning family. It's not that that's true or not true. It's that I need to notice what I'm looking at, notice how I'm looking at it, notice the things that I'm noticing, and noticing the things that are coming up in that noticing. That's really what the opportunity with this moon is, because it's like, if you knew beforehand that it wasn't going to go the same old way, you don't have to carry those same wounds, and you don't have to just keep repeating the same like relationship patterns or work partnerships. It's all about how you're showing up in your commitments and in your committed relationships. So this isn't like a place to feel judgment or like be shame on you or this is what I don't have, but we want to be super loving so that it's like, this is what's coming up for you. Like, is that your stuff? Is that someone else's stuff? Maybe someone said something because of that Aries energy that catches you off guard, where you're like, yo, I thought we were like good. I thought we had, and then it triggers you, and then you go back into your same pattern where you go, this is what always happens. And it's like, stop yourself from the this is what always happens game. If you're in that position where this is what always happens and it's happening again, notice, okay, that's like a clue. And it's like, it happened because there's a part of me that is still either expecting this or, so you want to just take full responsibility for whatever experience you're having. It doesn't mean anything about your life as you're seeing it. And it doesn't mean anything about like the hope or possibility for your future. It's almost like you're just getting that, you get to peer in and you get to go, when I peer in, here's the place I'm peering from. Here are the voices in my head. Here's what I assume is happening. And here's what I can surrender because I know that I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes. I appreciate that both you and Dragon have brought up this sense of pattern finding.
Yes.
And you use that word of like a boil, like in opposition to that, you use that phrase like boiling, brewing, boiling up, wounds that are boiling and brewing. And I have felt in the last few days that I have had to tend to that bubbling pot of brewing traumas that I'm not even, all of my desires, like for marriage, for whatever, they've just gone out the window because just the tending to the wounding has been so consuming and so troubling and whatever. So I appreciate that you guys are introducing this sense of like, let's look at that stuff. And instead of letting it be really confusing, try to look for patterns. Has this happened before?
And like even like patterns has happened before. And also like what you just said is so perfect, because it's like there's this deep wounding that you're experiencing, that this other thing that you kind of, like, we've kind of been talking about it. Like, one of the things in your previous relationship that wasn't going to work was that you had different visions of the future and you had a different idea of the timeline, etc. So if automatically you're going through this deep wounding and there's this part of you that when you think about marriage or you think about romance or whatever, you're like, I can't even go there. It's not only noticing what patterns are showing up and what's the same, what's different, but it's also going, so when you are triggered, when you are tending to that wound, it's not connected to the part of you that is like even if you were to connect it in your mind, I'm tending to this part of myself and I'm tending to these triggers, even if like marriage or committed partnership isn't intensely on the forefront of your mind, but if you do it with the like, so that I can find a connection that really is long term for real this time, or so that I can so it's like you don't want to like, you want to just notice where in the moving through feelings, the dreams or the visions of your future that you have aren't even interesting anymore. Like not even on my mind. It's like, okay, well, that's just interesting. What a profound disconnect, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm just taking care of myself. But and at the same time, it's not a disconnect, because it's not about finding marriage or it is about healing yourself, and it is about tending to that wound. So both are right. But it's like, if you can even just notice that that's what disappears when you're just doing this and so, because it's like, what patterns are being reinforced then in your mind? Like, okay, I see how fucked up I am. I see how hurt I am. I see how wounded I am. There's no way that this is in the near future for me. Or, whatever chatter. It's just like noticing all the chatter and not choosing anything and not having a judgment either way, but just noticing like, oh, well, that's interesting. So when I'm tending to myself, I don't automatically connect it to like for the future of my relationships. It's just
Yeah.
like, nope, oh my God, fuck that, you know.
It's interesting how you've used that phrase. Well, that's interesting because like what you're suggesting with that phrase, well, that's interesting. You're asking us to sort of be objective, step outside of it. It's very funny that you're offering that when we have this like Venus and Chiron ridiculousness going on, because who wants to be objective right now? Who wants to step outside? There's such a level of disappointment, right? Not just for me, for everybody.
For everyone,
right?
yeah.
So it's hard to sort of step out and go, okay, this is what's, you know, well, that's interesting that you've been crying for 10 days. That's interesting that something you thought would work out didn't. That's all great. Like, it's hard to accept this human reality, which is full of suffering.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? And it's like, if I feel like we spend so much of our time both getting in relationship, getting out of relationship, being just single, being with her, it's all in this like grand attempt to avoid suffering or to like say, so like when you're doing pattern recognition work, it's not so that you never get hurt again or so that you like can now just be happy forevermore. It's so that you can like sort of, how do I put it? It's like if you know that suffering is a part of the like you can't get out of it. There is no, even if you are in the perfect marriage and you fucking come together and it's like meant to be whatever, there are still problems that are going to come up in relationship which will cause pain. And so even if it's at the very end of your life, one of you dies before the other. I mean, it's like there is no guarantee unless you're going to Romeo and Juliet this shit, which, and they had a lot of suffering, so I don't think that you want, you know, dying together maybe isn't the goal, right? But it's like unless you are literally perfect for each other, gonna live in a vacuum and then die together on a planned day, it hurts. Love hurts, relationships hurt. And being a human hurts. The minute that we are born out of, you know, Aries energy is that birth energy, right? So not only is this a wound of the heart and a wound of that, we're remembering the wound of sort of past disappointments or letdowns or heartbreaks. This is the separation wound, the original separation wound
From the
from mother.
divine. Yeah.
Right.
From
We
the divine
leave
ether.
the
Yeah.
minute that we are born. Not only is that traumatic for everyone, either you're getting cut out of a body with whatever, or you're fucking plowing through a vagina when you finally got comfy cozy, and then you're in the world and now everything's fucking different.
Yeah.
And there's blood and there's guts, and then you're separated from the thing that you thought that you were attached to, right? We are all living out a separation wound of some kind from the moment that we're born until the moment that we die. So it's not that this separation wound, that's why I think it's like, right, the key is to, it is so hard to like not take things personally. It's so hard to not be subjective. It's so hard to not think that your pain is more than other people's pain, or that your pattern is harder to break, or whatever it is, right? Because everyone's original trauma and every trauma thus forth, you know, when we don't compare it to each other, we just feel our own wound and we kind of can see it as normal and go, oh yeah, this thing that hurt me, that happened, and it's okay. Like it's okay that it hurt. It's like I see one of our community members posted something the other day about, it was a really profound thing. She's a mother and she posted a picture of her son in the toy box, or in like the sandbox outside, and she wrote the school caption that was like, doing everything in my power to not, like, I guess he was having trouble with the other kids on some level, and she's like resisting everything, resisting every urge in me to go manage the situations, like to go save my son in this social moment. And she's like, but it's not my job. I have to trust that he's okay. I am sitting here watching. And she's like, we can do hard things, but as a parent, not just like interjecting and is such a hard thing. And I was like, whoa, fuck,
That is
yeah.
so beautiful.
I can't even imagine.
I
Can
know,
you
like
imagine?
seeing your child subjected to this ridiculousness. You know, what you said, that idea of like, you know, that feeling of I finally got safe in the womb and now I'm thrown out. It's like, how many times during life do we have to feel that, of like this kind of blissful, it's kind of like the side of life that we live for, is that like blissful, wow, I'm safe now. Wow, this is amazing. Wow, wow, wow. And then as soon as we get that, we are thrown out again.
Always, every time.
Into the unsafe world.
Well, and I think that it's kind of the same. Maybe now, like the edibles kick in and it's going to show. So I apologize if this is like too out there, but it's almost like it's the same idea though of like light doesn't exist without dark. Like at the height of a sunny day, the shadows are the darkest. There is, in this like space-time continuum, that so long as we are physically present on Earth, it's all. And I mean, even if you think about the solar cycle, right, and this sort of the sun cycle that's like very strategically moving us through every degree of the zodiac, illuminating every single thing all over again, hitting our charts. Our charts progress, but your natal chart is your natal chart. So every year, the moon and the sun are doing this dance across your chart, and then the other planets, there's a ton going on. So you don't ever there's no, like, people always ask me, like, I always have clients that are like, when is it just going to get easier? Or like, when is it all just going to calm down? And it's like, I can't, this is not like something where there's a beginning or an ending. Like, even after you die, I'm doing fucking past life shit. I'm hired, I've signed up for a past life regression. Like, we're all too aware of
I
how
hope.
never ending this cycle is.
I would like to have never ending.
You are a Aquarius, sun and moon, new moon, ninth house. That's what's so fucked up. But we don't really have proof and we don't really know. But you're an ancient being, Marguerite, like specifically you. You do know. When I say things to you that are out of the box fucking wild, and I'm talking to you about your family karma and what you're here to do and who you are on a grand scale, doesn't it, like, and I'm telling you that it's like mission based and that you're actually here doing some, like, this thing for a reason, it's divinely ordained, and you can go like, yeah, like, you actually know you're not.
I
You
hope,
do
babe.
remember.
I hope.
You do
I need
remember.
I need more luck.
You know it. You do know it. And even for you, even that, notice that. No, there's a part of me that really doesn't totally feel connected to my, like, cosmic self. Fabulous. What if you were? What if then you were finding that, like, the messages that were really going off? Oh no, she's a big time starseed. We should do a starseed reading for you because it'd be interesting to see, because it's like, no, you're here on a mission, and you're a new moon Aquarius baby as we're entering this new, like, era of Aquarius, powerful ninth house. Like, you are a public figure for a reason, and it might not all make sense yet, but you are moved by a higher cause, right? That when you're like, I hope, there's nothing we can prove about the future other than to really be present. But when we have faith, it's when we're doing something that doesn't necessarily, the Moonual doesn't have, aside from it being a pleasure and really fun, it doesn't have the, like, in terms of, like, financial growth, let's just say, I don't have the automatic return because I'm not trying to, like, fast cash build a business. I'm trying to grow something bigger than myself in a way that is sustainable, right? So that means that the growth might be really fucking slow. It might be really fucking slow, but I have faith. And so that's where we want to know, oh, wait a second, I have faith. Remind yourself, I have faith. This wound is not fucking forever. It's going to come back around, and it's showing me something. So if you can just soothe yourself and not fucking put your shit on other people, this is going to be a great moon to then kind of get ready to receive all of the blessings that are on the other side of this sort of this from now until the summer solstice.
I like that guidance for all of us. So anyone who's listening now or later who is struggling, the advice here is to soothe in a healthy way. I've been really noticing that I don't want to put anything that mood alters me right now. I'm just like, soothe.
That's
Let
huge for this
yourself
moon.
be. Let yourself
right.
be heard. You actually need to hear yourself right now.
Yes.
And just
and a lot of that is coming through Pisces. So it's coming through the dream state. It's coming through those intuitions, those inner nudges. So if you're going to pick a time not to numb out, this is that time, because those wounds do need to surface. You cannot, if you avoid them now, it's only going to fucking come back to bite you when, this is like a chance. It's like there's opportunities for I mean, you can always heal, but this is like, no, like, this will come back to fuck with you in 6 months if you don't do this healing. So don't numb it out, feel it.
Sometimes we hit the full moon, Sarah, and I feel like, oh, that's what happened this past month. Like, I set the intention to move into my apartment, and now I'm moved in. I have no idea. I have no memory of what I set in place in the new moon. What do you think about that? How do you guide people right now? Like, most of you, I want to tell you, hey, think about what manifested this month for you. What do you have to say for this?
So number one, brainstorming tonight. This is why I want to make workbooks, because what you're describing is incredibly normal, right? So this is where, like, when I started getting into the moon work, one of the reasons was I thought it was the most, like, so I was a practicing life coach, but life coaching is very expensive by nature for a lot of reasons. It's an expensive service, right? But as someone who didn't come from money or doesn't have a long money, I realized that the moon cycle was a way that everybody could sort of use this cycle as a natural life coach, right? Because the whole thing with life coaching is that it's really what you're paying for more than anything is, like, accountability and mirroring, right? Well, what is the moon? It's doing that reflection work, right? So the new moon is where we're setting intentions. The full moon is where we're reflecting. And then it's just that accountability. It's on this schedule. So if you're like, okay, at least twice a month, I have to check in with myself. then I will check. And but you know, people with life coaches will say, well, why can't I just do it for a month? It's like, no, you have to do it for at least like really like 4 months in order. Same as going to the gym. You have to kind of like work your shit out. You can't go to the gym once and be like, this sucks, I don't have abs. You do it over time, and then you go, oh, because a lot of times when we set goals and we set intentions, we do either like forget about them, or that's not the thing that like illuminates. So number one, we want to keep track of them. So it would be interesting. You don't have to stare at your intention all moon cycle in order to make it happen. In fact, it's much more interesting to go back through and just look at what the intentions were and look at what the reflections on the full moon are. You'll see that there's actually longer cycles. That's why the pattern stuff is important. You see that there are longer cycles in place, but when you move into any new intention, the road is not necessarily linear or clear, and doesn't like, it's not like snap your fingers and like, oh yes, sometimes you could open the vortex and that thing is waiting right there for you.
Yeah.
But most times you kind of forget what the goal is because you're just fucking managing life. So the way that I would say, the only thing that matters is on the new moon and the full moon. On the new moon, you set intentions. On the full moon, you reflect, and you like, oh, and then past that, just notice every month both of those things. You'll find that things that you said 2 months ago, all of a sudden are manifesting now, you know, because that cycle was completed. And the stuff that's being brought up now, even though it seems like, oh my God, then when 6 months from now, when the new moon is in Libra and the full moon is in Aries, there's going to be this other side of the story. So you don't need to like focus on it so hard that everything happens at your will. It's kind of like set those intentions and then reflect on the feelings, and then let the universe do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the things that you're wishing for and co-creating with the universe.
Beautiful. So reflect. And I like that your primary guidance for us on this new moon or this full moon, like on every full moon, is to reflect. Do the work of reflecting on what happened. So on an astrological level, what do you think happened this month? Like spring kind of started. It's like March 1st to March, 20 something now. What else happened? Like, how can you help us understand what we just went through emotionally this month?
Well, so this is interesting to me, and I have a question for you first that I'm curious about. So I don't even know what your like religious background is, but Sunday, so tomorrow is Palm Sunday, right?
Right.
So what, I don't, can you tell me what Palm Sunday is? I'm also just curious to link this because then because based on our last conversation, I will tell you what it's about, but I'm curious, what is Palm Sunday?
Oh my God. I hope my mom will not be listening to this, but Palm
Watch
Sunday.
her.
So when we would go to church for Palm Sunday as kids, we would get palms and we would braid them. And you'd have dragons saying it's an echo from the earth. It's like connected to Easter. It's like preparing for Easter.
And Easter is when Jesus was resurrected.
Yeah.
So he was born on Christmas. Palm Sunday, he was welcomed to Jerusalem by leaves and palms. And then a week later, he was killed. And then the next day, he was resurrected. Is that, what is the?
Yeah, I don't know if he was killed the day before Easter. I don't know.
Those are those results we're talking about, but we don't want to expect.
Yeah, I don't know how quickly that manifested, but yes, he was resurrected on Easter.
So the reason that I asked is because last we spoke, so at the last new moon, which was 2 weeks ago, so kind of the beginning of Pisces, or it was the end of Pisces season, right? And then what has been going on for the past month? So we had because we're coming up with full moon in Libra. So we had a full moon in Virgo, and then we had a new moon in Pisces, and now here we are, right?
Yeah.
So on the last new moon in Pisces, we had a very divine collection of energy. So new moons, intention setting moons, new beginnings, but also deaths, right? Because you have to go through the dark in order to then start the cycle again. So it's a dark moon phase in Pisces. We had the sun and the moon in Pisces conjunct asteroid Isis. And then down with Mercury, we had asteroid Osiris and Horus. So the quick mythology is like Isis and Osiris were the original like Greek god, goddess, lover, brother, sister, king, queen. They were the rulers of ancient Egypt. They were madly in love. They had another brother and sister who were also married, more of a Fred and Ethel, not so much passion. They didn't get it right completely. And so out of rage, the younger brother Set basically tricked Osiris, of the power couple, into getting into a coffin, and he sent him downriver, killing him, right? Isis is infuriated. She's like, fuck you, brother. I'm going to find my man. She finds her man. She brings him back to life. He's there again. Set is pissed. He kills him again. This time he dismembers his whole body, chops him up to little pieces. And Isis is like, oh, no, he didn't. And so then she makes it her quest to go find all the pieces of his body. She finds 13 out of 14. She uses an eggplant, which we now know is the eggplant emoji, to symbolize his phallus, which was not findable. And she just laid on the floor with the parts of her husband that she could find. And out of this labor of love, collecting the pieces that she could, she somehow revived him, got his eggplant dick to work one last time, and she became pregnant with this miracle baby, Horus. Now, Horus then was this miracle that was, born of an egg, similar to Jesus. And a lot of people will say, and please don't fucking at me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm not even a Christian, but the YouTubers will have you think, if you follow a certain rabbit hole, that there's a connection between the story of Christianity and the story of Isis and Osiris and Horus, because there is this idea of this feminine carrier of a baby being impregnated by, spirit. So even if Osiris did come back and fuck her with his fucking eggplant dick, we know there was no sperm. We know that he was a dead person. And in fact, this was a miracle, right? So then Horus is born, he's this miracle baby, but then he has to spend a lot of his life not only avenging his father's death, but Set then tried to fucking kill him because he was like, no more sons in this line. I just want to be king and queen, and I hate my fucking sister and her brother's happy family. Fuck them, right?
Yeah.
But then Horus loses both of his eyes. Set thinks he wins, but then Horus actually gets this higher level of power, which that's when we have the eye of Horus. He actually, by losing his sight, he activates his third eye. So we have all this to say that Horus and Osiris were with Mercury together on the last new moon. And then we had Neptune, Venus, the sun and the moon, and Isis together in Pisces. All of this is happening in Pisces, just like Kali and Shiva. Yes, another perfect example of this sort of like twin paradigm. We also have the North Node and Mars, in both cases in Gemini, really asking us to focus on our own duality relationships, and then also our the duality in our partnerships. Do we feel we have mirrors? Do we feel we have our sacred partner? What's blocking us from being higher love, etc., right? So to me, this last new moon was really a dissolve. It was like a full completion of this masculine, feminine, sort of broken family vibe, right? So when we're talking about relationships and the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and we're just looking at our own patterns, even as a culture, we are in this pattern of, the masculine is this, the feminine is this, the masculine needs to have a big dick and provide, the feminine needs to be subservient and, and call in miracles and be that magnet, right? But then we spent a lot of time, even if you look in like the 50s, husbands were going off to work. And so the feminine spent a long time longing for this partner, longing for the masculine to come home and prove their love. Or in the cases of Mary and Isis, longing for this lover that ultimately came through spirit and created miracles. And so it's really healing this idea that the masculine is this provider and the feminine is this subservient, like kind of, just angel that's there to provide and serve and just be taken care of, right? There's actually this way higher functioning dynamic. They are both. We are all both. And it's really making it clear that the divine feminine's role is to be the kind of carrier of miracles, and the divine masculine's role is to be spirit and to actually provide so much of a blanket of support that we know that even if fucking as women we're out here fucking hustling, all hope is lost, that actually we can work with miracles and we can call in. All the work in the world can't do what a true divine masculine sort of comfort blanket or spirit, faith, Lord, whatever. So it's not about religion or God, but it is about really stopping this chasing, running, trying to piece together. Isis is healed. Isis was freed from her old work, which was to find all the pieces of her husband and put it together. And now Isis has moved forward. She's very close to the sun, Chiron, and Venus. So now it's actually like Isis is getting her new mission. There are still feelings from the past that you don't, it's like forgive and forget. You do want to forgive, you don't want to forget, and we
Yeah.
don't forget and we can't forget. And so I think we're right. I think what this past month has been really like a purifying of all of our physical bodies, a purifying of our energy, a reconnection between our like daily work selves and the spirit self. I think as it's interesting that like the vaccine started to roll out, and so now there's like people are kind of on different pages about like their sense of like security or protection or safety
Hmm.
on earth versus other people's. There's these questions of should we be carrying cards that say we got vaccinated. There's all these sort of questions in the collective trying to heal this. I mean, in this case it's a literal pandemic, it's a literal flu versus our own like sovereignty and our own
Yeah.
health. But it's like what we're healing now is like, we all have our own personal relationship to spirit. We spent the past month really cleansing ourselves and cleansing the people and the patterns and noticing them. This new moon 2 weeks ago was kind of just a release of the old story and an opportunity to go, okay, I'm going to now feel like maybe even more shit, but it's not for nothing. It's because I actually now like, okay, like I did have a husband, he died, I had a baby with him anyway, he lost his eyes, he can see better, they don't need me anymore in that world, it's all done. I now have to go, Isis, put the pieces back together in something else. But because now we're talking about this Aries Chiron Venus conjunction with Isis right there, it's like, okay, Isis, before you get your mission and go now move into the next sort of storyline that you're gonna bring things together and then create miracles around, what are you still afraid of? What are you still holding on to? If you're always stuck in the habit of looking for the fucking dick piece that you never found when you know it's out there somewhere, you might miss what's actually up in the future for you. So we really want to
Hmm.
let go of all the old things that feel so true, not because they didn't happen and we don't want to honor the wound, but because they don't necessarily have to happen like that in the future. And you do have to get real about what wounds you're carrying from all of your ancient storylines before you get your next mission. Because even, when you're in a bad mood or you're in a wounded place, even when we get messages or we get homework assignments or whatever, if we're not feeling up to the challenge or we're feeling like resistant or like pressured in whatever way, we can't even hear. It's like opportunities will come to me, but if I'm not like willing to receive them, I'll find some excuse or I'll push them away or I won't even hear the thing that someone said because I was like answering another question in my head. So this is really about really
Hmm.
like what is it that's why when you're in your dark night of the soul moments or when you're noticing how hurt you are around certain things or you're feeling what you're feeling, there's no judgment, but it is interesting, it's data, because it's like, oh, if you were to continue on with this wound being the story of your psychology and letting it unconsciously link to ding, 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 and ding, then you will be on that same karmic cycle. But you can really heal it if you can go, okay, wait a second. My dead dick husband, I don't need to find that phallus. My brother probably ate it for dinner. I'm going to move on and put the rest of the things together, but I'm still going to mourn. I'm going to honor and celebrate and look at what I've been through. And none of those people that you broke up with, weren't worth it, or it wasn't like a waste of your time. It was all perfect. And yet the eggplant is now an iconic emoji. Who knew that would be the, you know, so, and then I guess the last thing I'll say is in terms of Palm Sunday, the reason I was curious is because, right, Easter really is this like resurrection. It really is this birth from a baby, birth of a baby. Or I guess Jesus is like the birth of the baby from the egg, but the resurrection really is like, the passion of the Christ. So it's like we celebrate all of our inner divinity, and we celebrate our successes as leaders, as far as we have all done so far during this pandemic and otherwise. But like you were saying before, Palm Sunday too, it's the message. This doesn't mean that you get to now. Jesus didn't go live in Jerusalem free of charge. He fucking died a week later and then returned, and that was now the biggest other holiday, right? So it's like you can't you can't stop the. Of course, you don't need a dick. There's tantra. There's vibrators. We got enough. We got enough. There's ASMR on YouTube now. There's ASMR porn. It's fucking great, right?
So the sun, let me make sure we know these facts about this full moon. The sun is in Aries and the moon is in Libra. And is Aries about action?
Yes, Aries is that like birth energy. It's like primal action. So it's not even necessarily, it can be action. More than anything, it's like impulse. I would think of it more like impulse than action, but it is action oriented. It's fire, it moves, but it's that strike a match energy. It's that baby just born energy. It's that I am. It's the first house. So it's the avatar that represents like and you can look at it in your chart. You can also look at what's going on in your first house. Both of those energies are kind of, you can look there with your I am energy in your first house, and you can look at it in the I am energy wherever your chart is, and you can see what crunchy, when you think I am this or I am whatever, what I ams are negative, what I ams feel like you're lying, how do you walk through that list of I ams? And again, record keeping. So it's like, when I say I am the host of the Moonual, I am a comedian, I am, a good partner, I am popular. I'm thinking about my chart, thinking about all these things. So it's like, notice the things you think you are, pick the ones that you want to continue with, let go of the ones that you no longer are, let that change.
Yeah.
But also notice where in your I am energy, there is a distance between that. Like, okay, so if it is action, if it is impulse, because now we have Venus and Chiron there may be the desire to take action, or we may have certain impulses, or we may want to be like, yo, now that I'm here, I'm crying, feed me, I'm a baby, right? Whatever. But because that wound is there, it might be like the energy, almost like the energy of like a cat, like a colicky baby. What do they call when they can't stop crying? And it's
Colicky.
it's like this baby that's colicky. And so, yes, you want to move forward, but actually there might be like an element of like sleeplessness, or like, I don't know what you want, or like, what is it, baby? Why are you crying? So that's kind of the thing. It's like, even though it is, Aries is action, it's forward motion, it's new, it's a brand new beginning, and we are moving into this brand new beginning. But it's like, do you want to use your Halloween costume from next year? If you cut the skirt, does it look different? Or, I don't know, like the amount of years that I put together the same 3 costumes I was a tap dancing turtle, I was a ninja turtle, I was a tortoise. We can take the pieces that we have and make it work for new avatars, but we do need to look at how each costume makes us feel, how every IM makes us feel, who we're blaming shit on, who we think, if we had this, if they only reached out to me, if they partnered with me, then it would be, or because of how I feel about myself, how am I actually showing up in relationship? I think the other thing that you could ask yourself, because this is right, Aries is action, it's fire, it's the sun. Libra is thoughts, it's the moon, or in this case, it's the moon. Libra rules Venus. So this is a very Venusian. There are a lot of feelings in this space. There are a lot of wounds that are up to be tended to, not to be like ignored or, but to be worked with. But I think the thing that you can also do is you're thinking in your mind, like, if only this if only this kind of guy was in my life, then I would be happy. Or if only a man would come and just give me a huge amount of, like, if I had a benefactor, or if I had a this, or if I had that. If you can identify if you think you deserve a hero, let me put it this way. If you think that you should be the hero of, or you think you deserve a hero in any area, get clear about what that hero would come and do for you. So if I had a hero, my hero would be someone that just showed up and was like, here's my checkbook. How can I help you organize your business? How can I help you? Right? So not only can I call that person into me by sort of getting clear about what it is that I want from a partner, but also the minute that I can identify what my fantasy hero, what my fantasy partnership would look like, I can start to play that role too. So actually, I don't really necessarily need someone to come save me. And in fact, thinking like what we were saying before, how to prepare. Okay, well, let's just say I knew that this person, because now God and Spirit are my man. So, okay, God and Spirit, like, I want a huge amount of money to work with. The truth is, I don't even know. I have my own wounding around my ability to think through, or to be a business person, or to be an entrepreneur. So I don't even, if the opportunity came and swooped in, I wouldn't necessarily have a number to give them. I wouldn't necessarily. So because I don't assume that that's going to happen, I don't do the work of taking care of my end of that partnership. The minute that I take care of that end, okay, if I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but I can prepare for this incoming of the miracle, of the blessing, and ask myself, where are you blocking that love? Where are you blocking the ability for you to be hireable, or to be given to? It's like, I have these fantasies about receiving, but then if you had a conversation with me about what I wanted to receive, I wouldn't be able to tell you. That's what's coming up for me. So I need to actually do my Aries. I am this. I am asking for this. I am desiring this. And what I want for my partner is this. And then actually step into the energy of that partner. And even if I can't be my own benefactor tomorrow, unless somebody really wants to buy a package tonight, LOL, hit me up, I love to coach. But it's like, but what I can do is get that list ready of what I want my partner to just give me right away when I'm ready.
Yeah.
And from that place of doing that focused work on myself and my business and what I want, my partner can then come and step up and serve me. And then we can really, even if I forget that that's my intention or whatever, we look in 6 months when the new moon is in Libra, and I bet you that the world is going to change without even focusing too much on the outcome. But that's how the moon cycle works. It's kind of, as long as you do it, you know, it's like a moon ministry. The Moonual is like church, but for the moon. So it's like, just go, show up, set your intentions,
Oh yeah, I
have your
can't wait.
prayers,
That's such a good
feel your
thing that's
feelings.
happening tomorrow.
And I'm so, what you're doing is like so perfect, because it's so much about like other people's stuff on you, and getting other people's stuff off of you, and getting
Yeah.
your stuff off other people, and claiming your own fucking divinity, wounded and all, and call in partners that just want to fucking lay palm leaves down for you all the time, or
Yeah.
every time you die and come back.
I did want to mention that to the group. Like, somehow I had the instinct recently to, like, what I'm presenting on tomorrow is like cutting cords and sort of like getting rid of spiritual sliming.
Perfect.
And so I did get the instinct this month somehow with like exes or people that like follow you on Instagram, where you feel that their gaze somehow is like not totally positive, to just like block those people. And I have enjoyed more freedom. It's like, it's not a big deal. They don't even notice. They don't like tell you, why did you block me? Blah, blah, blah. So I do want to share
That's
that.
such a big thing too. That's like really key. Right there, just side note. I think what you're doing, I think that's such a good thought for everybody, which is like, where are you making things more dramatic than they need to be? It's not to say that
Yeah.
you're wrong about somebody like thinking something about you or having a hater or whatever. It's about changing your relationship to how you respond to it. And right, so often we're like, well, no, if I unfollow them or if I block them, then I'll have to explain it, and then I'll have to this, or then I'll have to that. And it's like, actually, like, you might not have to. And if you do, maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had. But for the most part, no one's watching you. All the things that you think you can or can't say, or that you know, if you're bothered by someone's energy for whatever reason, take ownership of the projection of the mirror, whatever that's showing you, and then fucking get that mirror out of there. You don't want to always just be staring at a fat mirror.
I
It's
learned
not
that
helpful.
this month too. Like, I don't know if anyone else resonates with this, but there was an energy of, don't assume you know, like, people don't assume you know how people are going to react to things. Like, I'd have a certain guy at the start when I started like dating a lot, like I would go on like 3 dates a day or something. I would have all these assumptions. Like, I wanted to like shut something down with some guy, and I would say to a friend, no, because he's going to respond like this, and it's going to be annoying, and I'm going to have to deal with it. And she gave me the courage to just say, you know, what I needed to say, speak my truth. And so these guys responded in completely different ways than I was expecting. Some were really disappointing. Some were really, wow, he has a lot of character. So let's not assume, let's take that. We've learned that lesson. Let's not assume what people are going to, you know, how people are going to respond to our truth. Speak your truth. We've learned that. Let's not pretend we haven't learned that lesson, because we have. Right.
And also, like, when you are having that feeling come up where you're like, I'm assuming that someone is going to fill in the blank, what there is, if you want to get like interesting about it, what there actually is for you there is going, oh, wait, I'm assuming this is going to happen. And it's like I said, do that exercise. When was the first time this happened? Like, why do I make that assumption? And when did it happen before that? And when did it happen before that? So it's not to just like ignore your assumption. Your assumption also is like contains multitudes of data points. So it's like, don't assume that that's true. But if you can notice your assumptions, then that is pointing you to like deeper storylines in you that, especially with Mars and the North Node in Gemini, like lined up right now, we get to go, oh, wait a second. Oh my God, right. And that's my old story. And like, I'm now not going to make that assumption, but I'm going to like talk to the part of myself that, of course, I would make that assumption. And you know, I'm not there anymore, but whatever that inner child needs, like, give it to it, get some ice cream, go to a massage, you know, get a voodoo doll, whatever you need to do to handle where that assumption is coming from. Stop yourself from making that assumption, but that's a great data point. Wherever that assumption came from is not random.
Sarah, in a word or a phrase, and I always ask you this at moon time, how would you describe this full moon?
I would describe this full moon as it's sort of like, you ever see the movie Stepmom?
I think so, yeah.
With Julia Roberts and Susan Sarandon.
Yes,
it's really great. It's really great. But it's like one of those movies where like you leave the theater. I was weeping at the end of the movie, like weeping. And yet it was like, actually, there were like, it was so sad, but then it was also so beautiful and so happy. And it was all about these two mothers, kind of like one mother was dying, the stepmother was stepping in, and it's this journey of like basically one mother becoming the mother. And
Oh, it
ultimately it
makes me
brings, no,
nauseous. It's so
it is,
sad.
no, here's the thing, right? It's one of those movies. Oh no, I mean, it's so sad. And like Susan Sarandon does such a good, I mean, no, it's so good. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like, the reason I say it's like the movie Stepmom, even though that's not specifically about relationships and dating, it's like it's the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. And it's like it's kind of that crunchy place in between. It's that movie that you know you're gonna cry at, but it's not necessarily because it's so sad. It's because it's so, I mean, to me, like it doesn't end, like that's what's amazing about it. It's so sad, but it doesn't, it adds, you're weeping at the end because it's happy. So it's like through the crunchy storylines, there actually is greater love. And crying doesn't necessarily mean bad movie or sad movie or bad person, sad life, all of it. It just like it's emotional. We the wounds are what connects us, and it's what makes art good. It's what it's why it's interesting to date other people, because you find
So,
out things
yes.
and then you get hurt in different ways. LOL.
You guys out there who are hurting in all your various ways, Sarah is encouraging you to stick with it, self-soothe, don't numb out, hold tight, and enjoy the kind of peach-like quality of this painful round thing, which is this full moon, and that there is beauty in it because, look, we're not being fake, are we? We are, a lot
We
of us are in
can't.
pain. We're not being fake, and we have dropped old habits. Like, there's stuff that just does not plague me anymore because I went through this dark
Right?
night of the soul.
But like you can't get, like you would have kept being plagued by that thing over and over if you didn't actually sit in this moment. If
Yeah.
you had just been like, nope, you know what, I'm not dealing with that, then you would have met someone else and you would have gone through whatever, and then you would have found yourself in that. It's like you can't. That's why it's like whatever feelings come up or whatever crunchy comes up or whatever dark night of the soul or pain you've been through, if you can see it as a part of a really good story, then it's like, yeah, really good movies make you laugh, they make you cry. The classics are not just one. Yes, of course, Austin Powers was just funny, although even now, I'm sure if we looked back in the zeitgeist, it would probably be racist and sexist and too offensive. So it's like even that, even the shit that you think is all funny or all sad, that shit changes.
Yeah.
Movies that were super sad back in the day, you watch them now, it's fucking claymation.
You know what? I want to ask a specific question coming from I Prefer Everything. I have a Taurus moon in the 8th house. I'm lost on how this will affect me. And I just want to encourage everyone, we're a small enough group. We are always a small group here on this chat. If you
And
have
at the Moonual, will come
specific
tomorrow.
questions, yes.
It's small and you can ask questions and we'll do cards and stuff. It'll be great.
Exactly.
But I love this. Okay, so I have a
Yeah.
Taurus moon in the 8th house. I'm lost on how this will affect me. So here's the thing about having a Taurus moon in the 8th house right now. The real thing that's happening for you is that Uranus, which is the planet of sudden changes and kind of random occurrences that like change everything, turn it all on its head, is traveling through Taurus. And so the whole next like couple of years for you, and it depends on what degree your Taurus is at, but when you have Taurus in the 8th house, if your moon is in Taurus in the 8th house, you're going through a larger collective change where you're being asked to really fucking, it's like if you're blocked around receiving money or receiving like leveraging your relationships or leveraging, it's like you might be finding yourself like desiring more luxury or desiring more connection or romance or whatever. And yet there has been something that over the past whatever 30 whatever years of your life you have not quite been open enough to let anybody really into. But now you're going through a metamorphosis where you can't get out of having to be more vulnerable and open the door for higher loving and higher receiving, because Uranus is going to move through that 8th house Taurus moon and it's going to fucking send for the next few years. You're going to get lightning bolts sent every step of the way through your Taurus moon house. And the 8th house represents, it's like taxes, other people's money, it's the occult, it's sexuality and bondedness. And so if there are things that have kept you kind of like keeping keeping yourself a little bit maybe more distant from people then hypothetically you would want, like, you get really close to people and you want to leverage how psychic you are and how much you know about people, but it's kind of coming from maybe like a slightly manipulative place, or you're able to hide certain things about what you do behind closed doors or what really matters to you. Now those things are going to be exposed and you're going to feel like, oh my God, I'm fucking naked out here, what the hell. But it's really not a bad thing, as much as it's asking you just to kind of, if you have Taurus in the eighth house, what does that mean? You're a Libra rising. So this really is affecting your solar, the solar energy is on your relationships. The moon energy is right on your rising. So you want to look at where you're being kind of guarded and phony, and like what character you've put on in order to manage what relationships and keep your heart safe and keep the money coming in and make sure that you have at least a few people to call the fuck if you're just feeling like you need to, but actually is blocking you from that luxurious connection, that romance, that intimacy that actually would have you be deeply connected in a way that instinctually you might be more like hypothetically into the idea of relationship, or a really good people person, and then maybe be more selfish in relationship, or be more like chasing different passions but then not committing to one person. Whereas it's that moon is being unlocked over the next few years. So what this lunation is kind of asking you to do is like unlock a little more, show us a little bit more, be more of a giving partner, even if it appears like you're being selfish. Because actually, if you want real partnership, you have to be a little bit more giving with what you actually share about yourself.
That was really cool. I enjoyed that. And so is that a guidance you have for everyone right now, is be a little bit more open, be a little bit more vulnerable and giving?
Well, yes. I mean, specifically for that, in terms of that advice specifically, I mean, yes, it's yes. But if you want to know, look where Uranus is in your chart. The area that Uranus is in your chart is going to show over the next, like, it's like literally like over the next, what is it, spot on. Oh my God, yes.
I
love
had a
when
feeling that was spot on. I just, it was like hitting me in the part that this part of me that is her soul. I was feeling it like driving in.
just fucking nailing it out here, Marguerite. Yes. So
Yeah.
it's like that really is no worries. We read typo like fluently, so it's not even. But every key on my keyboard sticks together, and I'm a mess. I'm a mess, but it's okay. I love myself there. No, so yes, that's good advice for everybody, especially because it is Libra, Aries oriented. So our wounds are going to be showing, and it's helpful for us to share them and talk about them instead of just going, "No, I'm fine," because it's actually in the connect. It's actually in the confessionals or in the sharing, I think, that we actually can connect. And that's really where this moon is showing everybody where we have been protecting our hearts or protecting our egos, or
Mm-hmm.
we're about to get hurt
Or
again, or
trying
we're
to
afraid to get
control
hurt
like
again.
ISIS. One of the things
Exactly.
that resonated most to me when you gave us that transition from last full new moon at the start of the month to now was like that Isis energy of like doing whatever she could to recompile this person who had been dismembered and separated, all different limbs, all around Egypt, right? And she goes racing around trying to reassemble it. No, this can work. This can work. And that for me, that energy has completely deflated. If we look back to the new moon, I was
Isn't that
still
crazy?
racing to try to figure everything out with this, situation I was in. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't care if it's artificial. I don't care if there's missing pieces. I'm going to make this thing work. And now it's like absolute deflation of that over efforting.
Well, and that's exactly what it is, because that over efforting, it's like at a certain point, if ISIS had not just been like, whatever, we're doing this without a dick, I just want to lay with his parts, we would never have had that miracle of this third entity from this spiritual and physical love being born, right? So now there's been this healing in that area. The Horus and ISIS, they're catching up. They haven't been together in a while, so they're catching up. And now she's like, it's almost like the reason there's a deflation of that energy is because it's like that whatever that story was is now complete, but that energy still exists, which is like, okay, well, like, what is my mission, or what do I need to go put together, or what do I need to. But in this case now, number one, it's about herself, because Isis is now in Aries with this sun, with this Chiron, with this Venus. So now it's like, okay, having been through that, Isis, what do you need? Do you need a fucking billboard that says you're the greatest witch around? Do you need to fucking tell everybody
That
about the
you would be
miracle
so
you
great
created?
with a billboard and just the phone number where people can call into you.
Dude, I was
That would
thinking
be
about
great.
even making like
New Jersey
Clubhouse. I
Turnpike.
gotta do. I
So
have a bunch of
great.
pictures that might work. We can work on a slogan. I just need a good. I'll do it on Clubhouse. I don't even need you to call. We gotta get it going. But but really that's the thing. It's like, what does Isis now need to like put a pin in the first journey, like, and see it as a success and detach from it emotionally? That does take that's another layer of sad. Postpartum depression is a real thing, like to actually have to go through like, okay, well now we've separated, like, but we're together, we separated, but now we're more together than ever, like, weird, right? So we're kind of feeling through that. But then I think it's like this other energy of like, okay, well, like, it's not that you're never going to have that desire to like put pieces together again, but you just might not know yet, like, because we've been so focused on these pieces being broken or this
Mm-hmm.
relationship or this. Now it's like we've come through that, and it's like it's almost like when you're like, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I have so much to do, and then you have like one day off and you realize like, I'm depressed. I have nothing to do. I don't have any, like,
Right,
I
right,
I
right.
wouldn't take a day off if I could. Actually, I've been burying myself in working because I've been avoiding I have a whole day off. I'm still not working out. I'm still not meditating. I don't have a friend to call, whatever it is, right? So it's like, yeah, the energy is shifted out of like, I'm so busy, like, yeah, we got to figure it all out. So now
Mm.
it's like, well, now you have, now you can, it's figured out. So now you don't have to think about figuring it out anymore. And it's almost like we miss it. Like, we missed the stress of that thing because we were so used to that stress. But now this is like a new thing that we have to, like, we have to heal first before we get stressed about the new thing,
Right.
so that we can actually, and the next new moon 2 weeks from Sunday is in Aries. And so this isn't like this is the Libra lunation. So it's showing us how we're being in relationship to others. Over the next 2 weeks, there will be a clearing out of a lot of this energy, a lot of old relationships and relationship habits, or even just things that you're doing to yourself that
Mm-hmm.
are hurting you in whatever way, because then you get a new moon, a new beginning in Aries in 2 weeks, right? And that's where we get to commit to our missions. This, like, you don't have to reinvent your avatar this full moon. Just reflect, so that for the next new moon in 2 weeks, you go, okay,
Yeah,
I've
I
been
look
through the ringer.
forward to
Now this
that.
is who I am. And so but you have 2 weeks. You have 2 more weeks of mourning and healing and clearing it out. And
We
it's
can
like,
do
it's
it, you
all good.
guys.
We got this. Spring takes time. Once it's spring, it doesn't mean the flowers are there. They start to bloom slowly. We cannot rush the process.
So we have a few more days now to reflect, to kind of soak it all in, whatever tragedies you've dealt with, whatever things didn't work out, whatever endings you had to metabolize this month. And then 2 weeks from Sunday, and come with us tomorrow to the Moonual. You can be there with all the other people,
It's going to be
soaking
so
that big
fun.
full moon in. And then 2 weeks from now, we're going to get this new energy. And so let's keep it real. I'm looking for a genuine purpose that can carry me through my lifetime. And that
Mar,
can
you're going to
feel,
get such, it's going to be so clear to you at the next new moon. But right now, just know that, like, you're fine. Like, you're like, you're clue finding. Like, you're in the middle. You're
yeah,
Nancy Drew, and you're just like, you're out there with your fucking magnifying glass on your soul, being like, okay, let's see who's still here. Who are the prime suspects? Who
yeah.
are the, but it will become clear. But yeah, it's like the more you can kind of embrace these tides of change and really just represent the new version of you that you want to become versus the old version of you that you have a high likelihood of continuing to be if you don't, like, consciously adjust. We're gonna get messages 2 weeks ago. They're gonna be like, "Oh shit!" And then we're gonna know how to lead and who we want to be as leaders and what it is that we're doing here. But it's like, we do have to go through that dark night of the soul so that we're not just like power hungry maniacs
Yeah,
being like, "Aries season, here we go." It's like, no, wait a second, heal your ship first.
right.
Then you can really lead.
This word tribe is coming up in the comments, and another healer said that to me recently, like, make sure to be in like tribe right now. You've mentioned that like this is a time in which people can bond and share traumas that are happening, wounds that are coming up for us. Is a good time to connect to each other in that way. Do you have any thoughts on the importance of being in tribe with this full moon?
Well, I think it is. I think it's really important to be with tribe on this new moon. Libra is tribe. Libra is relationship to others. And so even if you're finding, it might be one of those moons that we kind of avoid. Like, sometimes when I'm just like fucking feeling good, it's really easy for me to like do a moon ritual because I'm having a really easy time like envisioning this future, and I'm feeling really magical and I'm feeling really up. Sometimes when I need to do the moon ritual work the most, if I didn't have the Moonual that I have to be committed to, I would just, which is fine too, like sleep it off if you need to or whatever. But it's like part of what the Moonual's gift is. It is that accountability factor, right? So if I'm like, okay, I have to show up, you have to show up. We don't have to show up and be perfect. We don't have to show up and be nice. We don't have to show up and do anything but participate, enjoy the acts, and ponder and consider, and just show up and be in community. That is part of the work of Libra. What am I committed to? Who am I committed to? What then? Something that someone said in the chat a few moments ago, which I think is an interesting question I can tie in here, which is like, I have a trouble. Someone said I have trouble when I feel like I'm in a group and my triggers are mirrored back to me, right? Well, that's what's so great about the Moonual. We were trying to, again, this is why I'm like, it's so many things that my marketing sucks, but it's like one of the things that we were playing with at the beginning of like this time last year, we were thinking about how to explain it to people. It's like, it's a place to get triggered, because in our friend groups or on Real Housewives or whatever it is, whatever we're thinking about triggers and conflict and stuff being brought up and then projecting onto others and whatever, without the, when we're not in the safe space of the Moonual, where there's this like, okay, it's being run by a life coach and a tarot reader, and like,
yeah, it's
we're all
so
comedians,
wonderful.
and so it's a safe place to get triggered, because not only can we handle whatever conversation comes up for you, but like we all are there in an agreement to do our own work. So when we get triggered, we know if someone says, oh my God, that really triggered me, what the fuck is wrong with you? We go, oh my God, I'm really triggered. What's going on for me? And then you can share it, because we know nothing is personal, but it's a place to practice being in relationship, a place to practice being in moments of conflict, or places where you're triggered with like you're consciously practicing not making it about the other person, letting it be an opportunity to sort of see yourself, and sharing it with group.
Yeah.
And so when you're
Dragon, you
triggered
will
by,
love it so much.
oh, you're gonna love it. And like, so like when you are feeling triggered by your own tribe, it's like, you got to come to the Moonual, because you'll practice it. But even in your own community, you can practice saying, hey, I'm really triggered. The big clue here is you make everything an I sentence. So you don't say you did this to me or you whatever. You say, I'm feeling this way. I'm having this experience. And then, you can share as much or as little as you feel inspired to.
What is good homework to do the night before a full moon? Is that the time to like clean the house, like sit in the dirt? Like, what do you recommend people do tonight before our moon ritual together tomorrow, which I do hope people will join for. It is free. Sarah's very generous to make this always free, unless you want to give a donation, which she appreciates. You go to her Instagram to find it's at the Moonual. What should people do tonight to prepare for the full moon?
So I think tonight would be a really great night to take like stock of your relationships, and take like kind of do like an inventory of like, who are the major relationships in my life? How am I being in these relationships? What are my complaints about these relationships? Like, kind of just like doing it. If you wanted to do like kind of something cerebral, really just reflect on who is in your life and what is going on in the storylines in your mind, so that you can actually work with the reflection. And then, as we move through this lunation, the relationships that you want to call into like a higher level or a higher place and evolve with you can have an opportunity to do that. The ones that really need to go will be let go of. But I think that the reason it's important is because there may be things even in the relationships that you currently have where you're actually playing a part in the separation or the disconnection or the discord or whatever you think the problem with them is, or whatever pattern you're happening again. What about you is actually like, you can take responsibility for it. Another thing that you can do is you can just write out, in terms of reflections, you can write out a list of everything that you feel, personally wounded by, or that you feel another person has wounded you by. You can also write out a list of what your fantasy, like future avatar is. You can go, okay, in my dream world, this is who I am. I wouldn't spend too much time reading them. I would put them on your altar, like put some sheets of paper on your altar, put them in the window, let it sit overnight. And then on Monday, so after the moon, then burn the papers. And just know that in that time that for tonight and tomorrow night, they're going to sit under that moon. You can read them at the end afterwards, but either way, burn whatever papers or journaling that you come up with tonight, because you don't want to be so attached to the old stories. You want to actually set them up as important, put them on an altar of some kind, set them aside, and then on Monday, anything that you write tonight or tomorrow at the Moonual or otherwise, burn it on Monday, and really like see yourself stepping into this kind of world where you're not bound to these old stories.
Okay. And would you recommend, if people were to take on that exercise of in my dream world, this would be my new self, this is what I would care about, would they also burn that paper?
Yeah. burn it all. I mean, if a vision of yours is like so juicy that you're like, I don't want to burn this, oh my God, great. Maybe like on a separate sheet of paper or maybe in your computer, write a bullet point of the shit that you want to remember because you're like, no, I am so committed to that. And then fucking call me, I'll be your life coach, or call or work with someone to actually like if you're like attached to if you're like, I'm not even gonna remember how good this vision is, great. What a great way to feel. Otherwise, the stuff that you're meant to with comedy, it's always so hard because like back when I was doing more stand-up too, like you have a funny thought and you like want to race to write it down. And then it's like sometimes you don't remember it or you fucking say it different next time and you're like, fuck, fuck, fuck. But the truth is, when you go to a lot of open mics, what you realize is the stuff that was just funny, like the stuff that you were meant to remember, you remember. Even sometimes you'll forget to record a set, which is like how you would go back and listen and like edit the jokes. And you'd be like, fuck, I didn't record the set. Now I'm going to lose that great thought. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to feel better the next time you show up at an open mic, even if you don't have any notes and you didn't record the set, because you felt your way through it the first time. And so you're going to know if it was a vision that was so juicy or it was a joke that was so funny that it was just like so good, you can't forget it.
I'm so grateful to you. I'm smiling looking at you because I feel you with every breath that comes. You live so fully, and every breath that comes out of your mouth is like you're trying to help other people, and you just like live it fully. You just use every second you have to put out thoughts that you think will help people.
I hope. Thank you.
That's so wonderful. Nice. I'm so grateful that you said yes to doing this personal one-on-one time.
Dude, it's my pleasure. You asked the best questions. If any people that are not super into astrology would ever understand half the shit coming out of my mouth, it will be because you're there like actually clarifying so much of the crazy shit I'm saying.
I love this image that this image is really, really fascinating and very dark. The idea of looking into a mirror in a dark room.
Oh yeah, and there's people, you could do that. There's also something called like scrying, which is like either like you could look into a mirror in a dark room, you could light a candle and watch the flame through a mirror in a dark room. You could just you could even like Google on your phone like scrying screens. It's like basically just like staring into like like a black screen on your phone. But if you like meditate or focus either on the candlelight or the dark mirror or just like a blank black image, it's a way to like some people like it more than others. Yeah, you can close your eyes, but it's like a way to like basically see things in the dark and kind of like because it takes the ego out of it. That's the other thing. Aries represents the ego. So we're all seeing where our egos are like bruised, and so when we're writing our visions or when we're writing our list, like we can be feeling this need to like control the narrative or like manage the storyline, or there's things we don't want to let go of because we want to be right. So it's like doing something like that where it's like a little bit more creative or a little bit less about like thinking your thoughts can be helpful too, because you want to kind of get your ego out of the way.
There's this movie I'm about to go see, which is in theaters, called Nomadland, and I just want to throw it out there because it's got really good reviews and it's very like sad and spacious, and it seems like just where a lot of us have been.
Fabulous. I love a sad, spacious, well-reviewed flick.
I feel like eventually we're going to get sick of this this sort of wounding, and we're going to be fresh soon, and we're going to have fresh thinking soon. I can't tell you the number of people who've been telling me, I want more energy. I have no energy. I have no energy. And everybody relates to them because that's what's been going on. And, you give us hope for the new, and we can bond while we're here in this shadow work. Love you so much.
And I think too, remember too, if you have no energy, fucking sleep. Mercury's in Pisces. You'll do the work in your dreams. No pressure. See you tomorrow.
That's good. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.